Hey everybody, so in these notes we're going to start looking at the periodic table and figure out what all the different numbers and stuff in the table mean. So first of all, I drew a little rectangle around here. Your notes didn't quite print right. This area is supposed to represent a tile in the periodic table. So if we look at sort of an example periodic table like this, all these little different squares, we call them tiles, and they have a certain, they have information about each element in its in that element's tile, and we want to talk about what that information is today. So first of all, let's label some of the pieces on here. So I'm going to draw an arrow from this top line to this number at the top here, and that number is called the atomic number. Some of you may have learned that last year. You may remember that that atomic number tells you the number of protons. We'll talk more about that in a second. Next thing, this one's pretty easy. We just call this the element symbol. Now, often the element symbol matches up nicely to the element, but sometimes it's sort of weird. For instance, sodium, S-O-D-I-U-M, its element symbol is Na, which doesn't make any sense in English. Sometimes it's based on their Greek names, or just a name in some other language. Usually it's Greek. So often the symbol and the name match up pretty well, but not always. So I already sort of told you what this one is. It's the element name. And finally, the number at the bottom is called the atomic mass. Okay, so it's important that you know the difference between the atomic number and the atomic mass. The atomic number is always a whole number. We have atomic numbers 1 through 118 because there's 118 elements. And the atomic mass is usually a decimal number. I don't know what the range is there, but it's a lot bigger than one. It goes a lot higher. It goes into the 200s for that. But anyway, that's not important. So anyway, the atomic number is usually at the top. Atomic mass is usually at the bottom. All right. So the atomic mass, I know you just wrote it. We're going to write it again. The atomic mass, so this number down here at the bottom, it tells you the mass of a single atom of an element. Okay, and there's never really a unit here. They're measured in atomic mass units, AMUs. That's probably something you'll talk more about in high school. But all you guys need to know is that this is basically just the mass of a single atom of an element. Now what's interesting, maybe you remember learning that atoms have protons, neutrons, and electrons in them. Those are the subatomic particles. Getting a little preview to what we're going to talk about down here. Protons, neutrons, and electrons. So protons and neutrons both have a mass of about 1 atomic mass unit, and electrons don't have much of a mass at all. So interestingly, there's another number here that we call the mass number that's going to help us when we're figuring out how many protons, neutrons, and electrons are in an atom of an element. So the mass number is just the number of protons and neutrons in a single atom, okay? So the number of protons and neutrons, where the atomic mass is the mass. Now, the mass number isn't listed on the periodic table. However, you can find it easily by just rounding the atomic mass to the nearest whole number. So if you take this number down here and round it to the nearest whole number, that will give you the mass number of carbon. Okay, so again, because protons and neutrons have a mass of about 1 AMU and electrons have a very small mass, it's hardly counted in here. So basically this number is very close to the number of protons and neutrons. So again, find it by just rounding the atomic mass to the nearest whole number. So if we look at 12.011, round it to the nearest whole number to find the mass number of carbon, that would be 12. 12.011 rounded to the nearest whole number is 12. So carbon's mass number is 12. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. We're going to talk a little bit more about that on the back side of this page. Let's go down to the parts of an atom here. So again, I think this is maybe something a lot of you guys learned last year, but there are 3 types of subatomic particles that make up atoms. First of all, we have protons. Sorry, there's a fly buzzing around me. Protons have a positive charge. I'm going to put a little plus sign there to represent that as well. Electrons then have a negative charge with a minus symbol there. And neutrons have a neutral charge. So I'm going to put like a 0 with a slash through it to represent neutral. Now protons, we find them in the nucleus. They have a positive charge and they are in the nucleus. Electrons have a negative charge and they are outside of the nucleus. And then finally, neutrons are neutral and they are also in the nucleus. Awesome. So let's draw a quick sketch of an atom. Now I have a couple different colored pens here that I'm going to be using. If you want to grab some coloring materials or whatever, you're welcome to do that. So I'm going to use the color blue to represent protons, and I'm going to make my little key up here. So I'm going to draw a blue dot next to proton. I'm going to use red to represent electrons, so I'll draw a red dot there. And then I'm going to just use my black to represent neutrons. Alright, so if we sketch it down below, again, protons and neutrons are in the nucleus, so I'm going to start there. I'm going to start by drawing, we're just going to make a very small, simple atom. So 2 protons close to each other like that, and then 2 neutrons also there, along with them. Real close, kind of nearly stuck together. And then I'm going to use my black pen here just to draw sort of a dotted line, and this is where I'm going to put my electrons. So here come my electrons. I'm just going to put one here and one there, about opposite sides of the atom there. Let's make this a slightly better dotted line. We're missing a few dots. There we go. That's a little bit better. Okay. So there's our simple atom. We've got 2 protons and 2 neutrons in the nucleus, and then we have 2 electrons that are going around the outside of the nucleus. Let's label a couple things on here real quick. So this again is the nucleus, and it has an overall positive charge. Overall positive charge. The area then where the electrons move around, we're going to call that the electron cloud. There are a lot of different names that we could call this area. Sometimes it's the electron orbital or the electron energy level or electron cloud. Different classes may tell you different things, but for us we're just going to use the term electron cloud. This then, because it has negative electrons in it, has an overall negative charge. All right, so that's the front side of your note page. There is one more important thing to talk about on the back side of the page, but we'll come back to another video for that.